show and tell, challenge, and in my case, jigs and fixtures, tips and tricks. Do we have anybody out there on? Okay, first,
I have been madly making pen blanks for the last
Better turn off your
hang on a minute.
Turn off the background.
Was it just me, or was he holding up a blanket?
He was holding up some plastic bags full of pen blanks. He only got them halfway to his face.
Oh,
Yeah. I have this many.
Camera's following you.
Darn camera?
You got a fancy camera, you need a cheaper camera.
Yeah. So in any case, I have one bag and another bag, and I have a third bag down here on the floor. I've been madly making pen blanks. And that, of course, is for the Turn for the Troops and also for the farm show.
Hey, Randy, you didn't respond to my email, Doug, here. Did you even get it?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
Did you ask him to marry you?
Yes, I would like some of that.
Okay. Sorry.
All right, man, go for it, Doug. You guys are very modern for Lancaster.
Do I need to rephrase that?
How much of that would you like?
I have a bunch of Purple Heart that I got from a guy out in Mount Joy. It was secondhand. It was from park benches down in Washington, and I got a whole slew maybe 5 years ago. And I've been making. It's part of my show and tell tonight. Is actually pens out of it. So making pens for the troops out of Purple Heart seem to be. Well, you can give it to the guys who are already wounded, you know.
right, but if you're not wounded, it could be a foreboding.
Yeah.
Well, that's why you give it to, I was thinking of sending it to wounded warriors as opposed to the guys that are pens for the troops, you know. Anyway.
I think it was nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Kind of like being in combat and getting somebody else's mail whose first name is John, you know? Dear John, oh my God. Okay, who's gonna go first here?
Since I'm talking about it, I'm going this one here first. This is what I'm talking about, guys.
Switch camera.
My daughter's getting married, and so I made, and one of the things I made out of was out of Purple Heart. So what I've actually done is made a whole slew of Purple Heart pens to give away to the wedding party and a few other people, guests of honor. So it's just after whatever. It says there's a huge.
A little spin there, Doug. There you go.
Can you do that a bit more? There. Anyway. And as I was making them, I'm just thinking of Randy Smith and his work for the troops. And so hold on a second. Purple Heart is a pretty interesting award, but some guys who survived it might appreciate something as well. So I have, if anybody's interested in doing something along that same line, I've got a huge stack of old Purple Heart. And this stuff was actually salvaged from park benches that were down in Washington. This 50-year-old Purple Heart. They used to use it, or they used it in the 1950s to make the park benches because rainforest wood didn't rot. So they didn't have to do anything to it, so they just left it there. So anyway.
How many do you have there, Doug?
15 or 16 or almost 20. Yeah. Here?
It looks like, look.
5, 10, 16.
Oh.
How long does it take you to make a pen?
Well, Randy's a better judge of that. Once you start getting them started, though, you know, just doing the lathing part when you get the blank out, and once you get into the rhythm of it, it probably takes about 10 minutes to get it down from the blank into the size you want. But it's mostly, as Randy will tell you, it's mostly about making sure the preparation is right, the tool is right, the sharpness is right, everything else is right. So.
What finish do you put on?
These I actually just put a Beal polish on it.
Okay.
I have done two things that I have done some polyurethane on occasion, and I also use, like some other people do, of putting on CA glue on a thick layer of that. Yeah, Mike.
But you're not using the white.
Pardon?
You're not using the white jeweler's paste on the build, right? Because of the
Oh, yeah,
because of the pores in that wood.
I
You're not
actually
getting
did.
white inside the pores.
I actually did, and it does give a tiny bit of white, but also if you put the Beal wax in it, it also makes a tiny color. And to be truthful, when you take a look at it, it almost highlights the pores a little bit. So it's almost,
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
it's almost
If you like
nice.
that look, yeah. I didn't mean it was the wrong way.
No, I understand exactly, because I've done it both ways. Sometimes I've done it without the white, sometimes I've done it with the white. I did a few trials and different things just to see what it was.
If you sometime do it with the wax,
Yeah.
and then take the pens and
Yeah.
put them like in a really low temperature oven,
Yeah,
the wax will absorb into the wood, and
Okay.
it'll have the same. You'll be able to buff it out, but it won't
Okay.
have the white in the pores because it will help
Okay.
absorb that wax.
So-
Just if you don't like the white or if you don't want the white.
I never thought about that. So you just put it in,
Just heat it up so
No,
that the
I
wax will melt,
Yeah,
which is
sure.
low temperature,
yeah,
and then just buff it out.
yeah. So
Rub
do
it out
that-
with a paper towel and then buff that.
Yeah, do that before you put the pens out together, in other words.
Yeah,
Good
or
idea.
after because it's low temperature.
Yeah.
Just don't touch the metal part.
Yeah, don't burn yourself.
They're not going to expand at 160 degrees, but they might burn you.
Yeah, as long as you don't write with them after that.
Right. Oh yeah, you don't want the ink in there for sure. That'll be all over the oven. It's like new bluing on the.
Anyway, I was just, because we were talking about the next,
Thank you, Doug.
Very cool.
Malwants or whatever, I saw a thing on boxes. I had never made a box, and this is actually my first attempt at a box. And the goal really was just to figure out the chucking, but the lid actually isn't that great on it, and the shape and the design isn't all that great. But that was literally not my purpose. My goal was, can I actually figure it out how to do it? And so after that one, I made a second one that the rim on it is way too small, but honestly, it sometimes does actually stay. And I will say that there's a frog hair's difference between a good fit and a useless fit on a
How long
jam
is
jar.
a frog's hair?
That is a
there-
biology
is there a
question
dimension?
and is the purpose. But this one,
Another way to say
I
it.
don't like the shape of it, but it does have that sound when you
the
pop
same
it
thickness
out.
as the
Right?
mat.
So this one is a good fit. And so, and the other thing that I wanted to say was, I have much prettier pieces of wood. I did not want to try and figure this out on a pretty piece of wood. So this is just ash that everybody and a brother has because of all the trees that have died. But learning how to do this was actually a lot of fun and a challenge, and the inside is still not great, but I'm working on that.
If you wanted to now, you could fire sand that ash and do the technique that Mike did. Rub
Mhm.
the gilder's paste into the cracks, paint it black, and with that ash, it has such nice grain and it burns back so well that you get a really good popping contrast. So if you wanted to take a fun step and try some color.
The other thing that I have been doing, because I'm not a finish kind of person, I don't want to spend my time finishing and coloring, and what I've learned is that paraffin wax is kind of like beeswax, but much cheaper and much more available, and melts into the wood and all that kind of stuff. So these are coated with paraffin wax and may actually make the fire burning a little more interesting. So
Yeah, that would go up for sure. Although the accelerant's probably dried off after a certain point.
But anyway, so this was a coincidence with the challenge. But happy to more
Just
questions.
you made comments about your shapes, and I think it's great when people analyze their own things and then say it could be better here and there. But the nice thing about boxes is they can be whimsical, they can be formal, they can it's a medium that allows you to do whatever you want. And so a
Yeah.
crazy shape on a box
Right.
is not necessarily the same thing as a crazy shape on a bowl or an unpleasing on a bowl. It might look really interesting. I
Right.
like the one in the middle with the little bulbous top and the bulbous body, and so. I'm not necessarily sure. I'd love to hear other people's opinion if they think boxes have to have a certain, as much focus on form, and if there's more
interesting.
freedom in the medium, because I tend to think there is.
Yeah, so my own thoughts on it were things like this has a I guess I'll put this down
Little
here to see if you
chamfer
can get it. The top of it is rounded, but the bottom I just did a straight chamfer. I'm not super excited about that. I wanted to get some lift off the table like you do with a bowl. But I do kind of like the shape of that, but if you look at it, it looks clunky, right? This is a little more delicate and refined looking. But you know, yeah, I'm my own worst critic, but
I think the one you were just talking about looks very modern. Has a real modern look to it.
Once you get the mechanical process down of the fit of the lid and the body and the proportions right, then you can really begin to explore shape and form or shape and design.
right.
And my general rule is go towards the one that you will really like and make a dozen of them.
Right.
And around 6 or 7, you start to get bored and you really start to try to refine the shape and the form.
Interesting.
But make a dozen of everything.
Right. So one of the things that I've done is, literally PowerPoint a 2x3 square and draw 15, 30 different shapes and stuff, and then go from. My plan is to pick the 1 or 2 that I like and do exactly that. Make a bunch of them. Learn how to be better at making the fits and all that kind of stuff. But yes, awesome. Thank you.
Could I also add that just because I think it's sometimes more difficult to make straight grain boxes than it is to make wiggly ones, because that grain is really noticeable when it doesn't match.
Right.
So to get something like that is actually really pretty good. I think it's excellent.
A question for you. So I've been using the thin curve tool. It chews the tool rest up, and like it really destroys. Like it hits into the tool rest. Am I not supposed to be
Your tool
using?
rest is probably too high. So it's banging on the tool, making it bang on the rest,
Okay.
and that's what's chipping. So bring your tool rest down so that your cutting edge, your leading edge of your cutting, is at at least the middle of as close to the middle as you can get it.
Wants to
Okay.
be the arc, at the
The
arc.
width, the
At the
greatest
arc.
width, yeah.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate the help.
So I clearly don't like one particular wood. Just a thin-walled, green-turned walnut with a hollow foot. Green-turned walnut with a round bottom. All these shapes, forms are on purpose. These aren't by mistake. These aren't, oh shit, I'm almost there, I'm just gonna go with it. Green-turned walnut, this is dry walnut. The idea here, there's rice bowls that I've used over the years, seen, collected, so on. I was going to embellish this with some carving, but I decided I like the wood, so I may or may not carve that and make it black, but I like the little lip here. And the wood itself, it's just a really pretty colored wood. Simple dish, dried. Beautiful color to this wood. Again, walnut. My favorite piece. This is green. It was dropped 4 months ago. Beautiful walnut. There are turners who like to say that this is a bullshit form because it's too angular, too linear. I did this on purpose because it's a masculine form and it has a functional aspect. A lot of people like to critique something like this as a dog food or dog dish, and I strongly disagree with that. Not everything has to be a sexy curve when it's made. This edge is purposefully not perfect radius. It's not flat, but it's nearly flat in the middle. It's a form exploration. Bottom bobbles. I'm following the wood color, the tone, the grain, the wave of the grain around the exterior of the bowl, all on purpose. Picked a piece of wood, and I found what I could make the piece of wood do for form.
Was the sapwood dyed to match the?
Nothing's dyed.
Oh,
The only color that's applied to these is gonna be walnut oil or walnut oil, walnut wax. The Mahoney's, the Mahoney walnut oil wax combination. With the walnut, I like that because it's flexible. This for the boxes. Dick, this is a box. Happens to be finished as an owl. I did not do this. It's a nest and an owlet.
Is it Jones?
Is that
This
also
is-
a box?
No, the owlet is not a box, although it could be.
I thought you had like Russian owls.
Yeah, no. So this is Joan Lack and Michael Kay's. It was a collaborative piece in 18, I think, or 19. But I brought it because I remembered, oh crap, this is the challenge tonight, and I didn't get a chance to make a box. And I think I brought a number of other boxes along, but I know I have not brought this one from my collection. I've just always liked this one, and when I had a chance to get this, I was really happy about it. The details on the painting and the detail on the base, I'll leave it on the table. I'll leave it up here for everybody to look at. Be careful with it, but it's a really nice piece. That's it.
Great.
An owl is
Occasionally you get a bonus form, a walnut acorn.
the owl is just colored. There's no carving on that, right? It's smooth.
The base is carved,
Right.
the owl inside is carved, this is painted on the outside of the egg form.
I'm Carol Hall. This is a piece I started with, Mike on our deck, on the veranda. He and I like to work on Saturn bowls a lot, and we're sitting, carving and painting. And this is a piece called Childless Cat Lady.
Stand just a little bit.
It's got a round bottom. It's got claw marks going on the off the edge, because I think it's really important to have a reason to turn over a piece and then go, oh wow, I'm surprised by that, I'm engaged by that. I have not figured out where to sign it yet, which is why I asked you. I'm thinking in one of these grain places, but it is important to not have it impede the.
Carol,
Yeah.
since you paint a lot of these Saturn bowls,
Yeah.
and a painting would normally be signed on the painting itself, do you ever sign it on the painting?
That big piece that I did with the fox and the,
Yeah.
the rabbit chasing each other, I signed it in ivy.
That's what I was
On
gonna
the
say,
top.
it's like a painting, sign it on the painting.
Yeah.
It's actually technically
I don't know, I like giving people a reason to flip it over, so I was thinking of signing it and also adding a little drip of blood, because there's the red from the scratches. And so I have my 3D pen out, and I was thinking of just adding a tiny little 3D pen droplet.
Show it towards the camera.
Oh, sorry, this way.
What kind of paint are you using?
So this, the cats are waterproof India ink. I overpainted them with Prussian blue, fluid acrylics,
Using the
golden.
water-based acrylic.
Yeah, I use it very, very thin, and sometimes I bump up the binder a little with a little polyacrylic, which is kind of the base to any acrylic paint. But I use golden fluid acrylics because the grind on the pigment is so fine that you don't get those tiny little dots when you use it more like a watercolor.
And then you, since it's a water-based, do you put a finish on that to
I
seal the
use
water?
Renaissance wax, and I was gonna say something, but people kept raising their hands, so I thought I'd tell you privately. I put Renaissance wax on all my pieces when I'm done, which is so friendly to work with as opposed to paraffin wax, and it's got a microcrystalline thing going on, and you use so little of it. Buying that first can for $18 to $25 is like, but I've been using the same can for 3 or 4 years now. And it's got a reflective quality that's really nice, but it's matte, and it keeps you from getting fingerprints on a piece. And it was designed by the Victoria and Albert Museum to use on metal or wood or leather. It's just super friendly finish, and you can put it on with a rag, a little rag.
And if you go at the right time, Woodcraft has it quite
18.
frequently at
Yeah.
50% off,
Okay.
which is the way to buy it because it's sort of expensive.
Yeah,
Did you do any etching into that, like wood burning, or
it's all wood burned.
it is all wood burning?
Yeah, so I have this amazing wood burner that allows me to basically carve I made a very thick gauge, probably 14 gauge tip with it that's hammered out.
Okay.
And I can use that to, I filed the edges, and I can use that to slice into it with the heat, and then use that really awesome brass brush that I got from Thomas, and do it that way. I was gonna carve it, but I just really thought that the burning the wood away was
I'm just starting to do that. The wood burner I have, it's just not hot enough, and after a while, it just kind of cools off, and I
Yeah,
have to wait.
and it also makes your fingers annoyed, right?
Oh, that just burns.
So I just went to the Virginia show to meet all the amazing people down there and spend some time with them. I didn't really need to see their demos because they were all friends for the most part. And my friend Linda Ferber said, "Can you bring a burner for me to use because you're driving down?" And she didn't want to bring it on the plane. So I brought my burner, which I love, and Thomas just got one.
Best.
It's called a Detail Master.
That's the name of it?
Yep, they don't make them anymore. It was made by a company called Leisure Time. They made them in the 90s and it stopped making them end of the 90s, I think. They have the most beautiful pens that are aluminum so they don't conduct heats. And they have these little circles on them, and you can put gaskets on them so that your fingertips aren't really exposed to the heat, but also I burned this for 8 hours one day sitting on the veranda, just, working on it, and I never had to take a break because my fingers were too hot,
Yeah.
and it never popped off like the rheostat or got so hot I was thinking I was going to burn it out. So you have to buy them on eBay or Craigslist. What?
Model 4. Don't buy one or two.
So they have a few different models. The Excalibur is the best model. It's very hard to find, although I found two this weekend for Barbara Dill because she was like, "I want this," and another person at the thing, and that is really nice because it's got 2 ports, which is indulgent.
Now, these are all older, they're out.
Yeah, you want to buy it with pens. So you can buy the unit. The next best model is a Sabre. That's what you got, and that's got as big a burner as
They should call it the butter melter,
It's
because that's
great.
what it is. It makes wood like butter. It's like
Yeah.
cutting butter. It's really incredible.
And then there are lesser models after that. So you really want a Sabre, which is 1 port.
What's the brand name?
Detail Master.
Detail Master, the heat recovers very, very fast on Detail Masters.
But also there's some things that you can do to make a burner more efficient, like
Plug it into 220?
heat lamp. Put your piece under a heat lamp
Okay.
and warm it up so that then when you're burning it, you're not fighting the coldness of the wood.
Okay.
I mean, that's an easy thing to do.
That's a good
Make sure your fan isn't blowing on the surface that you're
Never
doing.
thought of
It's
doing that.
blowing the smoke away. One of the people at Keystone just turned me on to a little unit that his mother-in-law had so that she could keep herself cool because she's 87 and having kind of hot issues, cold issues. And it's a little thing she wears around her neck, and it has a fan that blows right up to your face as opposed to out. Well, that blows the smoke away from you without cooling off your piece because you've got so many heat things blowing on it. So I thought that was a great idea. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Next,
I'll go. Pick one. You want me to do this one?
I have a small one. Yeah.
Do the lightest one.
This is the small one.
Do the complicated one. You don't have one here, do you?
Yeah, it's complicated enough. All right, so the wood is black cherry.
Turn the piece toward the
Oh,
camera
yeah,
there, please.
okay.
It's their X, it's the Lancaster X.
Because it's big and bulky and I don't want to damage anything. Alright. So the wood is black cherry. I'm going to say it's 20 plus in diameter. The other one over there is 22 inches in diameter. I work large because I do lots of arts festivals. So my modus operandi here is generate revenue at the end of the day. I've been doing and been part of the turning community for a very long time. I just never made it out to law. I live in the Gilbertsville area, so it's actually not that far of a run, but from my office it took me an hour and a half tonight. So it's a little bit hard to get out here on Tuesday night. So this piece is made of black cherry. There's several different techniques. First and foremost, this is thrice turned, okay? So it's rough turned, air dried 2 years, skin turned, let sit for 6 or 7 weeks, then finish turned. You say, well, why do you go through those gyrations? There's very, very thin black lines that give the demarcation from the white to the cherry. And I'm pressing in veneers to create that. And if it runs out, even the slightest, you can't use it. You have to skin cut it again, and you can't go take lunch when you're working on this piece, when you're doing the initial works, because lunch, back to the lathe an hour later, and it will run out, okay? And when you have run out on a 6-inch diameter piece, you can usually work with it. When you have run out on a 20-inch diameter piece, it really complicates things. And when you get really big, even the centrifugal force of the lathe can cause run out. So that's why I thrice turn. After that, the decoration process is very simple. This is all hand burned in, using a burner and homemade tips. Carol encouraged all the time, make your own tips, do whatever, and I started playing with it and adding color and all those kinds of other things. This is a technique that I've been doing, I don't know, a very, very long time. It's very simple India ink over an etched surface. So you turn the bead in, you etch the bead with the, what is it?
Sorbet.
The sorbet texturing tool, and then run it in. I mean, 30 years I've been using this technique, or close to it. And it's quick and easy. I'll give you an idea. I was doing a demonstration 20 plus years ago, and I had a piece like this on the show and tell table, but I was showing hollow forms. I was making hollow forms in the demo. And at the end of the demo, somebody raised their hand and said, "We want to see you show this technique." So I said, "Oh, okay, I'm just finished an hour and 20-minute long hollow form demo, and they wanted to see this technique." So I showed that technique, and it's to turn a bead, etch it, apply the ink on the lathe, 3 minutes. Incredibly easy process. And I just started publicly showing it, with Mike Case's place and Bucks and Keystone and such. So this is done with bleach, and then of course it's fractally burned. Okay, so the white is actually created by 8 to 10 coats of bleach. So I love this little technique with the heat lamp, because I just stick everything right into my kiln to dry the bleach between coats. So it takes 2 or 3 days. Go ahead.
You might just tell people what your kiln is.
Okay, so my kiln is a giant refrigerator with an incandescent light bulb in it. And it brings the air temperature inside the kiln to 102 to 103 degrees. So I frequently dry timber, or take timber to the final stage. After I've air dried for 2 years, then I'll stick it in the kiln for 21 days. And what that does is drive the moisture even further out, so I have a more stable piece. Then I'll skin turn it and then stick it back in the kiln and then finish turn it.
What's the type of bleach you use?
I'm using a 2-part bleach. So it's hydrogen peroxide and sodium hydroxide. So I went to the hardware store and I found Drano, basically, which is sodium hydroxide. And then local pool supply store and hydrogen peroxide. You mix 2 parts, 50-50, stick it in the microwave. I use a baby food jar, and I'm using the cap of a Gatorade. 50, fill it to the top, pour it in, fill it to the top, pour it in, stick it in the microwave, and microwave it for 10 to 12 seconds. Gets the reaction going, and then apply it to the work surface. It dries out faster that way as well, so I can do 3 or 4 coats in an hour. And so in an afternoon, I can get a piece from cherry to pure white or nicely white. And you have to use that to do when you do the burning, because it's a sodium-based solution, right? Hydrogen peroxide, sodium hydroxide. So that's the idea.
How do you stop it from bleeding into the wood that you want?
Great question. Simple. It's really simple. See these two black lines here that I said are the starting point for everything? They keep the bleach from running because you've cauterized the cell structure on either side. So you drive in with a little parting tool corner on each side, and then shove a veneer in there. And it has to be, one of the really thin veneers. You can do it with thicker pieces, but the more prominent the black line, the more your eye is likely to see that black line. And in this case, I don't want somebody to see the line, I want them to see the white. And the black line really makes the white pop, because your eye doesn't really go to the black, it goes to the white, if that makes sense.
So I've used 2-part bleach before, but the stuff you get at Woodcraft with you put on one A, which is the peroxide, and then B, which
Exactly the same thing.
Okay,
They
but-
suggest a technique, you apply one coat, then you put the next one over. I mix the two of them together.
So it doesn't smoke anything on you when you do that?
No, there's ever so slightly a little bit of heat,
Okay,
but that's really associated with sodium hydroxide anyway.
okay.
But it's just so nominal. It doesn't matter, and I want the heat anyway because it increases the reaction.
If you
Or
don't have any
accelerates it.
ventilation, you'll be able to smell the
Yeah,
reaction. But if you have the slightest bit of wind blowing, you don't.
Okay, that's fair enough.
I mean you can you can smell it. It's present. It's there. But good
Does it
question.
work? Do you get white on walnut? Do you get
Oh yeah, any wood.
any wood?
Any wood.
Okay.
The more porous the timber, the less effective it is in general. So I typically, when I do these style pieces, I prefer closed grain timbers.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it'll make any wood white.
So the black and the white, that was all done by burn?
This is all done by burning. In this case, high voltage, 14,000 volts, and the sodium hydroxide. So we don't talk about at club meetings. We don't talk about this process, right? We're not allowed AAW forbids it, yada yada. We don't show it. So in general, what you need is you need to swell the cell structure of the timber just enough that you can pass the current through it. Okay. Once you swell that cell structure enough, because wood by its nature isn't conductive, but the moisture and the sodium and the sodium hydroxide make it conductive. Okay. Begins the burning process, and then it goes from there. It's very slow. This is a very, very controlled process. I am not using transformers from cooking devices. Okay, this is a much more controlled process.
9-volt battery.
No.
Don't lick it.
Other questions?
It's beautiful.
Beautiful. Well done.
This is a Saturn bowl. It looks like Saturn. And Mike did almost all the turning. We had a play date or two because we did it 6 months ago. And then it dried till about 2 weeks ago. Then we turned the rest of it. And Mike left it at my house and I burned it and turned off the bottom and colored it with a couple of different things. So I used, because I burned it back, I used the Gilder's Paste method. Wiped some of that back. I did several different colors of color shifting that I made. And then Andre was kind enough to give Carol and I some 7 or 8 colors of mica from his shop. And I made some paint out of it. And that's what this bronze line is. And then I used some more of it. Some of it was ghost powder, so this kind of interference-y looking stuff. So I used some more of it and used the Carol super wet glazing technique to go over some of the color in the wax that was dull and that I didn't really love. And I wanted a little more zhuzh in it. So I used the glazing, I used the mica powder in golden acrylic medium, and then I thinned it out with a little wet water. Go to see Carol's demo on wet water, and then just over the top to give it a little bit of a push. And it's maybe gaudy, Gaudy's not bad. It's Saturn. Oh, and the other thing is Saturn. If you don't know your planets, Saturn does have rings, but it's the ugliest planet of all. It's like gray and brown and yellow and ugly. So then I decided that Uranus had a little color, but Venus and Mercury has the most color other than Earth, and it has all these blues and different cool colors. So I was thinking Mercury and Mike turned Saturn and I. But I'm sure Mercury has rings too. Pretty sure. Gas giant that it is. So that's that. This is the newest piece in that circuitous series that I'm doing. This piece weighs 3/4 of an ounce. So I'm taking away as much as I can. Technically, I'm able at this point. I think this is probably pretty close. I could have cut out most of the rungs. Still probably would have been pretty stable. So I'm just trying to see. I guess I don't like wood because I get rid of a lot of it. But this is probably the most sculptural of the four. In my mind, there's a real sculptural thing to this. It just got its name today because in honor of Mike turning Saturn bowls, I've named this Pillars of Creativity, if you know what, or Pillars of Creation. Pillars of Creation. If you know the nebula Pillars of Creation, it's these three sort of nebula pillars that, and it's one of the oldest ones they've ever found, and so I think that's why they call it that. And so this sort of has three things chasing each other. It was just going to be a latticework cylinder because I had done one like a cooling tower, you know, that sort of hourglass, smooth hourglass shape, for a wrist bracelet for a friend. And before I sent it to her, I lit it up, and as you guys know, I'm thrilled with light and shadows. It threw some really cool shadows on the wall, so I was like, I'll do a lattice piece. And then I did this whole tube in lattice, and it just sort of looked like a chain link fence. I didn't love it, so then I just started cutting parts out of it, and then this emerged, and I was like, oh, that's it. So now I want to do some more of these, and also the latest thing is I've thought about, I don't really love the presentation of just the piece, so I'm thinking about the way I can do some bases, so that's probably the next time I bring one of these in, it'll have some kind of a stand or something that plays the role of a stand, even though it might not look like a stand. So that's the next thing.
Is that bleached?
No, this is just holly. It's unbleached, it's unfinished. I'm with you, Ray. I think that holly, if you can get away with it, looks better without anything on it, just natural. I don't know how long a fairly naturally white piece of holly like this will remain white, but I'm guessing it's going to be long after I sell this to someone or I give it away, so I won't have to worry about it. But you could bleach this and make it even whiter. It could get probably significantly whiter than the cherry that you have on the fan piece. But then you got all this residue you got to get off, and this thing it's not delicate, but I'm not going to go scrubbing at it with a wire brush or, I'd have to find a better method, a much gentler touch to sand, because
Ultrasonic cleaning.
yeah, then you got the raised grain. So, 400 sandpaper, you could do it, but you still have some of that. Once you spray it with the vinegar and neutralize it, now you've got raised bubblies everywhere. So I'd rather just find a better piece of holly. Find the best piece of holly you can, the whitest piece of holly you can, and do that.
I brought one last piece.
Oh, no, this is full orientation spindle turn.
Okay.
So it's end grain, side grain.
Who's got a piece online there? Sorry. I brought because of the box thing, I brought this box I made in 14 years ago when I first started turning. I did all the wrong things as far as people from the wood segmented turning, particularly with the bottom, making out of the 6 pieces because they said it would all come apart. And 14 years later, it's still as good as the day I made it. What's that?
We can't see it when you're waving it around like a baton.
Sorry.
There you go.
The base is still perfectly glued and everything like that. It's a matter of, and one of the things that people I don't think realize is that the secret to this is actually making sure that when you sand it to get that V in there, you can get a lot of heat going along a disc sander. And what happens is because of that heat, the point will change shape as you're grinding it. So you have to be very, very slow on getting these points together for that thing, just to make sure you don't build up the heat in the wood. And then, they last. So anyway,
Okay.
Nice.
thank you.
Anyway, I was at Rockler's store, and I told him I was an AAW member, and he gave me a 10% discount. And I think you'll also get the discount if you tell them that you're a club member. On the bill, it said something about a guild member. So that's one tip. The other thing that it's not a tip. The Museum for Art and Wood in Philadelphia. I went to the opening of well, this is backwards.
No, it's forward, bro.
It's
You
good.
seeing his forward?
Yeah.
Mark
Yeah.
Sickery, who was also featured to this month's AAW magazine. And I went, the opening was Friday night, and Saturday, I didn't make the opening, but Saturday they had a gallery discussion, and he talked for an hour and a half, and showed slides of his work and so forth. And it was a really great show. I highly recommend it. This is the book from the show. Some of the things that are there. His work, a lot of this stuff he said he actually carved. He didn't turn these things, but Mark is the one who was known for his off-centered bats. And he's quite an amazing artist. But anyway, it's a great show. I highly recommend going. Well, a tip is to go on Sunday. Parking is free, and very little traffic. So it's a great day to go. But you'll have to check their website. They're not open every day, but it's free admission. You can make a donation, whatever you want. But John Kelsey has shown the upstairs. You definitely want to go to the second floor, because there's probably literally thousands of beautiful work from a vast number of different turners. And whatever show they have, it's always a good show. So that's my little bit info. So that's it.
Good to see you, John. Hey, Susan, good to see you.
Museum was that?
Museum for Art and Wood.
Museum?
It's at Third Race in downtown Philadelphia, and they are closed on Monday and Tuesdays.
Museum of Art and Wood. Okay.
Museum for Art and Wood.
For art.
Right. Yeah, you can check their website out.
If you have a question, feel free to ask me. I'm on their board.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, if you have a question about it, I'd be happy to talk with you about it.
Yeah.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
There's also a talk. Mark is giving another talk on the 16th of November, which I think is a Saturday. So if you want to go to the museum to hear Mark speak about his own work, he's giving one more presentation on Saturday the 16th. I think it's Saturday. Someone check the date, but I know it's the 16th. I can't remember the time, but I want to say it's noon to 1:30 or 11 to 12:30.
He does a really nice presentation. He's got a great personality. So if you can get there, it's well worth it. And you can ask questions, pick his brain. He's very open.
Okay, I think that's it for show and tell. I just wanted to, it kind of complements one of the things that Mike was doing tonight, as far as putting the the radial lines. This is this is the post off of, I used to have a smaller lathe, and I had a platform tool rest that I really couldn't use anymore on my larger lathe. It wouldn't go up high enough. And so I had the posts, well, the whole tool rest sitting around. By unbolting it, this is just a PVC collar to control the height at my, when I put it in there, it comes out with this on as a router holder. It establishes it at the, exactly at the center. So all I have to do is move this along. And the thing at the front is a depth stop or determiner, if you will. You just put a laminate trimmer. And laminate trimmers are pretty much all somewhere between 2.4 and 2.5 inch diameter bodies, whether it's a Bauer from Harbor Freight or, in my case, a Makita. Just slides in there, tighten this. And this is just hardware, I think they're called angle brackets for like shelving. And it has this nice little dent in it that really makes it a stiff upright. And then it's a nylon, an old-time faucet washer, you know, like before they went with the cartridges like they use now. Earlier faucets used a nylon piece like this. And it's just been put on with CA glue. And so you can advance your router so that the point is sticking out at whatever depth you want. And then you just, one side is if you're going up against a straight face, like going across here. And the other is if you're working on the inside of a bowl or the outside of a bowl, you can move your contour along better. And finally, if you unbolt it, the extra holes are here. Well, there's 3 for this side, so it can be cantilevered quite far. You turn it over and this fence protrudes. So if you're going to move it along at a straight line, it's a stop and you can just move it along there. That was my tip for tonight.
Okay, cool.